Hey everyone, this is Rangadad. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. Just going to start with the liquidation heat map, just because basically there's a gigantic amount of long liquidations quite close by. Yeah, down to about the 94.8 level. That's just on the 48-hour. Go out to the weekly. Yeah, you're potentially getting into the down into the 91, 90 mark. And then if we move out to the monthly, it looks decent size, but obviously there's quite a bit up to the 108k or down into the sort of 83k level. There's potentially more than that out there as well if we go back a bit further. Yeah. So still more to the downside when you look at it longer term time frames than there is upside. It's just whether we come into this stuff that's close by down here before we actually go further up. And I'm actually leaning towards a bit of a bounce here. Could be completely wrong on that, but we are starting to get cumulative volume delta sort of looking like it wants to bottom off a little bit on both futures and spot. Still a little dicey. Maybe right, I closed my BTC shorts. Shouldn't have done that. Anyway, lots of bids here on the bid-ask delta. You know, plenty of support through these last couple of little dips. Price doesn't seem to care at the moment. There are, again, looking at the Binance CoinAche chart, you know, down into the 94.8. There's plenty of liquidations down into that level and some decent bids for buying it. Yeah, there's not a lot of big ask orders up in here. That's kind of a little bit concerning given how much we got down here. So just based on that, you would you'd actually expect it to come down first. So that was dumb. I shouldn't have closed those shorts. But anyway, quick look at sentiment. So smart money sentiment's actually dropped the last couple of days. Might be a little bit of a pullback. What that tells me is they're actually probably expecting a little bit more downside first. They've taken a little bit of profit off the table. So it's not good for stocks. Interestingly, IBIT, so the this is the BlackRock one, I believe. Two decent orders at the low here in the Friday session. Now, there was obviously a pretty massive order here in the open of that day. That was after the big drop. We may see this being a defended level. And it looks like there's kind of been interest the whole way down here. People are buying the dip by the look at this. That could potentially provide some support for Bitcoin. These guys are less price sensitive than what the normal market is, though. So you may see Bitcoin still flush a little bit more. Interestingly, Coinbase got a big order on Friday after the close as well. So I'd say that's a pretty good sign. There's a decent one on the 2x long back here as well. Not getting a major read off that one. Marathon Digital hasn't had anything massive come through in the last week. Yeah, some decent trades at the lows though. So again, that's not a bad sign. Getting a bit of volume come through on the dip. Some of the Ethereum funds, I think these would be buys. That's 8th largest trade ever. That was probably a good exit, that one there. This one here, the Fidelity one, had the largest trade ever on it come through just after that dip. So this has dipped back to levels that were same level at the bottom when Ethereum was basically at the bottom. So a little bit concerning not to see anything major come through there on the top 5. Yeah, or even the top 10. So yeah, maybe some support. Consumer staples, pretty flat week on it. It is kind of edging its way up by the look of this. Haven't any massive trades on it. XLY, so excuse me. The consumer discretionary has dropped away a bit, which kind of goes in line with stocks generally pulling back. Technology sector, decent trade in there. Yeah, no real read on that one for mine. I just want to have a quick look at the ETFs. There are definitely flows coming back into the ETFs on Friday. Assets. So BlackRock's still buying Bitcoin over the last 7 days, even on the Friday. I think that's generally a good sign. A lot of these guys, Van Eck dropped theirs a little bit. Fidelity dropped a little bit. It's interesting though, BlackRock keeps buying regardless. That tells me that BlackRock probably knows something that the others don't. All right, let's get into the charts. So just back to this total crypto market cap versus stables. We've struggled to get through the 200 EMA, 200 EMA on the 15 minute, which is the 50 on the 1 hour. We have found support still off this trend line here, which does go back to these two major dips. I guess that's a good sign, but we need to get back above that 50 EMA on the 1 hour. Preferably back above this trend line here. If we can't break above that, then it's bear market territory, really. It's just I would kind of expect a bit more of a bounce after such a big drop, even if it's a dead cat bounce, but like up into the 107 type area. And the other thing too is this sideways action has given us a little bit of leeway to come down and still hold this trend line. That has been a fairly strong trend line. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits and rejections so far. My concern will be if we do test it again, it'll probably slip through into this green horizontal here, which is a reasonable level as well for a bounce. It's had some rejections on the way up. Even like where we are at the moment has had some support and resistance on it as well. Very sort of highly traded region on the total crypto market cap versus stables. So we could even just get some more sideways, just sweeps of the low to get that long liquidity out of the charts because it is quite a bit. It's pretty high. And you've still got plenty of room to move down. So while still holding this trend line, it could just be that we just grind down into this level here and then try for a bounce. But generally, breaking this trend line here, if we can't get back above it soon, you would expect us to probably go potentially even into this other trend line here, which is the one that connects all the lows back to the, I need to go with the daily. So this trend line here, basically connects the lows of the previous 6 months grind right back to basically the low on BTC after the FTX crash. So that there is a really key level to hold. And we certainly could get into that before we actually see another bounce, if we see another bounce. If we break below that, and what I'm kind of expecting, like looking out the next 3 months or so, is we do actually grind down into this and we have one last bounce. Whether we actually make new highs or not, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm kind of suspecting probably not. It really depends what global markets look like at that stage. But yeah, just pointing out again that we barely made a higher high on total crypto market cap versus stables between the high of this, or the first high of this 6-month consolidation, versus the basically the second high of the current consolidation area. So to me, Bitcoin's losing momentum. And look, the bear market finished here. This was the start of the bull run. So we've been in the bull run for quite a while. What we don't want is this to form a double top and it comes all the way back down again, which is entirely possible. Anyway, yeah, shorter term time frames. At this stage, the daily's kind of moving sideways away from this downward trend line. It is a good sign, but it's still looking pretty bearish. Just go into Bitcoin itself. So we're still flirting with the top of this channel as well. A big dip and a close within this channel, even if we're closing above the value area low, which is at about 94,200. I'd still be expecting a bit more of a pullback unless it just instantaneous, like the next day we're back above and closing above this channel. If we close inside the channel 2 days in a row, then I'd expect us to at least come down to the midpoint around that 88, 89, back into this sort of green area in here, at least on a wick. But by then, Bitcoin's looking pretty nasty. And that would be the point that you would say, okay, everyone's going to be thinking bear market, worst case, 65K, there's going to be calls for all sorts of numbers below. That would be a perfect point for a bounce. You'd be recovering this wick here, that wick there. But for the time being, it still looks possible for a bounce here. The only thing is those liquidation levels just below this. I think the last real support here is that value area low, which is coming pretty close to the 50 EMA on the daily as well. All right. Quick look at Ethereum while we're here. Ethereum still hasn't really recovered any key levels. Mine. Little bit of a trend line there that it might respect. Yeah, momentum's still to the downside on Ethereum. And it is to the downside on Bitcoin as well, just to confirm that, with increasing BBWP still. So yeah, that's not a great read either. Just go down to the 1 hour and see what it looks like there. It's getting basically putting in higher lows here for the time being. May keep doing that. Momentum's turned back over though. BBWP's maybe going to increase. It's pretty nasty. Like lower looks more likely, just based on these charts. Let's look at Litecoin. Litecoin, this could actually be a gigantic bear flag. Whereas you actually look at it on Bitcoin, and typically this would be more of a bull flag, particularly if you're in a macro uptrend, which depends on what time frame you're looking at. You could say we are, but generally, like that could be a flagpole, and then you fall back, and then you have another run up, which getting us up into this area here would make a bit of sense. Just going to measure this off roughly. If we did find a bottom here, that'd push us back up into that resistance level there for a measured move that's the same as that flagpole, which is not a bad level. There's a lot of liquidity up around 107K. 708. All right. Just having a look at the pivot levels, rejection off that pivot. We have left some decent vector candles above too, which is another reason why I suspect we may want to try higher. Yeah, for the time being, 95,600 is a pretty good support level. We could sweep that before a move up. At the moment, cyclic RSI is pointing down. It's kind of smack bang in the middle at the moment, though. So what I'm saying there is there's room to move in either direction. There's no real read off cyclic RSI on the 1 hour anyway. On the daily might be a different story. Daily's at a good level for a bounce, but it certainly hasn't sort of fully reset or anything. Like over here, before you run up, daily, the mid band of this channel was well below the 50 level. That's a really good spot for Bitcoin to be in for a bounce and for a major move. We certainly haven't got that yet. But it doesn't have to come all the way back down there either. Yeah, looking at the monthly pivots, that is, a retest of this one wouldn't surprise that much. Bitcoin longs. These guys are still buying the dips at this stage. What's this saying? Still sell bias on that indicator. Just yeah, kind of the sideways market over the weekend has really contracted the linear regression channel, whichever way we move, it's going to be a pretty decent one, I would think. We've essentially recovered this vector candle in here. There's a lot of momentum and volume. RSI is still coming down, CVD RSI. So, I don't know, still downward trending on the shorter time frames at the moment. CV starting to base it all. Again, still downward trending on Ethereum as well, but getting to levels where it could actually potentially jump. At least Ethereum's putting in reasonably clear higher lows here, which if we do bounce from here, that would be another higher low. Certainly, it seems to be a bit of defense of these levels now. CME will open again soonish, couple hours, about 3 hours. It's an interesting level to open at. We're basically coming back into that level for Bitcoin on the rest of the centralized exchanges and general market. So there might not be much gap, which given there was some decent trades on the dark pools at these levels on Friday, that's a pretty good level and pretty good momentum bias for actually a bounce there. So yeah, just looking at CME, it doesn't really look like it wants to dip much more than this. Yeah, it's kind of a coin flip still at the moment, but does look like it's potentially putting in a reversal pattern here. It looked like it was going to do it there as well. We just kept getting rejected from that 1 hour 50 EMA. That's the key level, I think. 1 hour 50 EMA would also clear the point of control on Bitcoin. Doing that would actually, I think, lead to a decent bounce. It'd also get us back above potentially this trend line here on total crypto market cap versus stables. We can clear those levels, clear this 200 EMA as well on the 1 hour. Then, yeah, back up into this key area here, which could actually, like, this isn't exactly relative to price action on Bitcoin. So a move up into that level could actually see us get Bitcoin to 107 without too much of an issue. And I would expect quite a bit of resistance here. If we move through that, then we could actually be hitting another all-time high. Don't expect that to be the case anytime soon, but you never know. Yeah, we just need to find a base here, break through these levels, and then we'll at least get a bit of an upside reprieve for a little bit. Into the end of this week. So the next 3 days, I think 3 or 4 days, a bounce should get into these levels. Have a look at the general stock market because it was looking pretty nasty. Just go to the daily. So that's a pretty nasty candle on the daily. For the Qs, Nasdaq, same. That's a rejection of that trend line there. You'd be expecting more downside here. Interestingly, the equal weight Qs still same sort of nasty candle, like complete engulfing of this previous day candle. Didn't quite make a new high. You got to expect that to keep coming down, surely. Could get a little bit of a bounce. Like these sort of days are typically followed by a little bit of upside, or potentially upside. Sometimes they do just drop and keep dropping, but you would expect a little bit of a bounce at some stage in the next couple of days just to wipe out some of the shorters before actually pulling back harder. But this isn't looking good. Let's go to the weekly. The weekly actually looks better. The weekly's suggesting uptrend from last week. Momentum's still the upside on the weekly, but it's not Not ideal. Shorter term timeframes are turning around. Potentially. Still in the bullish control zone though on the equal weights. Yeah, this doesn't look great. Now got another trend line basically forming through here. Market's a little bit skittish still. Rejection of that trend line. Momentum on the S&P 500 looks like it wants to roll over after a reset to like, to me, this is not looking great. I'm expecting a couple of weeks of down here. Equal weight. Yeah, so equal weight was kind of suggesting this last week already. Again, BBWP is low, so this could potentially flush quite quickly if BBWP starts to increase. Again, I think equal weight's kind of leading the way, showing which way the market wants to go here. IWM, same sort of deal, rolling over. BBWP is resetting. XLY, XLP, oh, okay. Breaking that trend line. Closing below it, we need to see. Excuse me, need to see another closure below it, but that's a bearish sign for the markets. Increasing BBWP on that as well. Yeah, the XLP versus SPY is still holding that trend line break. So typically that is going to suggest more downside on the markets. Coming off one of the lowest levels ever. Equal weight XLY, XLP is still high, but that is a bearish engulfing candle as well. So expecting downside this week. Still haven't broken this particular trend line on equal weight. XLY versus SPY. S&P 500. It looks like it wants to though. Typically these trend line breaks don't lead to great things. I will show BTC as well. Yeah, so that was a trend line break there, and it led to S&P 500 to pull back. Bitcoin did go on a little run before it joined the party, though. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, I'm expecting. See, whenever we're breaking these trend lines here, depends where you take that trend line, but break of it. This one here led to another decent pullback. Realistically, the market topped right on that bit there, which we had a similar top on this little bit here. So, yeah, I mean, this is suggesting we've found the top in the market for the time being. Consumer discretionary is pulling back off a lower high as well. Equal weight, we're talking now. Consumer staples. It's finding a bit of a base by the look of that. Regional banking rejected that trend line again. Oh, home construction, massive down day. Yikes. Yeah. Home builders, same sort of deal. Massive down day. These could get a bit of a bounce though if there's an interest rate decrease. They are at interesting levels too. There's my ray. There is a gap fill there still. Don't really want to be breaking that level too far. Even more important is this level through here. That's sort of the last bastion of hope for markets, I would think. SMH, yeah, same as everything, pullback. Did kind of expect it to fill this gap here, so pull back. If we pull back and break through this level, it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath on the markets, I would think. Again, there's going to be some support down around here, potentially. DJI Gold, again, another break of a previous pivot. It's going to suggest more downside to the markets. DJT Gold was already suggesting that as well. Sometimes it's hard to trust these, but that break there was a pretty good signal that we're topping on S&P 500. Yeah, double top on industrials too at the moment. If this plays out, it's going to look pretty nasty. We got there 7.5%. Yeah, back into these sort of levels here. 15% kind of level. 15% drop, that is. What do we got? Michigan consumer sentiment. It's down a bit. Non-farm payrolls was down a bit. The revision on this was nuts. Unemployment rate. Yeah, down a bit. Jesus. That's probably why the market didn't like it. Unemployment rate's down, suggesting they don't have to cut rates. So towards the middle of this week, core inflation rates are coming out. That's probably going to move the market. PPI is coming out. Retail sales, or forecasting that basically flat. Yeah. Again, VIX kind of bounced off this trend line as well, so would make sense for more downside. And then you got the skew coming in and going, nah, more upside. So the skew actually is suggesting more upside, at least for Monday trade. I don't know that I'd trust that at the moment. It's just strange. The VIX one day. It's kind of suggested that we hit a peak around here. Want to see the VIX one day really kind of take off to the upside to put in a low on the S&P 500. I think at the moment I'm not seeing that. I mean, it could roll over here and suggest that we've found the low, I guess, but it's not. Looking at the rest of the charts, you wouldn't really expect that to be the case. So the Hang Seng is going pretty good still. Might be getting pretty close to its measured move as a channel breakout there. But, um, that's your channel. Not a great one. Good measure, but it's pretty close to that. So it might have a bit of a pullback if the US market pulls back as well. It's not a bad spot for it. Japanese market's struggling. UK market still moving a bit higher. Suggests it might have a bit to go too. Still find that bizarre. Don't follow the UK market too much, or just the German and UK market. What I do know of them, they're supposed to be in recession and having all sorts of troubles, but market's not suggesting that. Yeah, Treasury's pulling back a little bit again, probably on the assumption that interest rates aren't going to drop. High yield junk is pulling back big time though. That's an indication that markets are going to pull back as well. Same with the LQD IEF. It's pulling back. Yeah. 2-year could just be retesting this trend line. You kind of want the 2-year to pull back a bit. If it doesn't, and we actually break through this to the upside, then yeah, stocks are going to find it very hard to move up. 10 years getting a little bounce as well. We have retested and confirmed this trend line, so US 10-year could actually keep running. Chinese 2 and 10-year at the lows still. Copper breaking out. See, this is a little bit abnormal. If the market was going to be pulling back or the economy was looking bad, then copper wouldn't normally be going on a run like this. Could be something to do with China stockpiles or something like that, but yeah, I mean it's a pretty decent breakout. You'd almost expect copper to come up into the $5 level just to recover some of this vector candle here. Gold sort of confirmed above this trend line here, so do expect that to bounce. Silver rejected off basically the vector candle top here. Should just be a pullback into this trend line this stage. US oil bouncing pretty close to that point of control, but it could just be a retest of the value area high as well, which was a pretty decent, just horizontal level. Yeah, oil's still potentially down into the 67, 68 level. Dixie, bounce for Dixie off that trend line. Again, if yield's going up still, Dixie will probably climb back up into these areas, which won't be great for stocks. So there's a lot of downward pressure on the stock market, which I think is going to affect crypto a bit as well. At the same time, Bitcoin can actually bounce before the stock market does. Bitcoin's been in a larger downtrend at the moment than the stock market. Percentage of stocks above the 50-day average is pulled back as well. Little double top on that one. Expect that to keep coming down. And this is looking nasty on the Mag 7. So need probably a couple of days closure here, but that's looking like a trend line break there. Which Tesla's still got a bit to go, I'd say. Could actually bounce here. There's a bit of support there. But if everything's coming down, I'd expect Tesla to sort of make its way down, even if it did bounce a little bit. Nvidia testing value area high there, and a key level too, like lots of support and resistance at that sort of 129, 130 level. Yeah, it needs to break through here if it's really going to fill this gap and recover this vector. But given the overall market outlook, probably more likely to sort of do this. If the general market's pulling back, potentially actually even in for a vector candle recovery there before bouncing. I think if you can get Nvidia for $108, it's probably not a bad buy. Google's pulling back. Jesus, that's a nasty candle. That's not great at all after such a big pullback after earnings. It's down nearly 10% already. Microsoft's still struggling. That's a rejection of that trend line. I'm expecting Microsoft to come into probably the 388 sort of level. Be somewhere in here, I reckon. Okay. Again, bit of rejection at the top of this channel here for RK, so risk is probably going to come off. Apple breaking down that trend line again. Looking pretty nasty. I think this is probably more the target. Somewhere in there. $200 level on Apple. Amazon, it's got a way to come, I think. I don't know what that trend line's doing at that angle, but it is actually sitting on that trend line there. I doubt it's going to hold that if the rest of the market comes down as well. Meta, it's the only one that's really doing any good at the moment. Airbnb, rejecting this trend line. Maybe earnings will actually get it through that trend line. More likely scenario, if the market's bearish, is we probably come back down in around here somewhere, 125. If it breaks below that, then 120. AMD testing this trend line again. Yeah, I mean, AMD's been hammered. As I said, from the highs, last video, I think I pointed this out, down 52%. So it's like we're getting sort of recession level pullbacks in some of the big tech stocks without actually having an overall, like S&P 500, major pullback. So some of the like tech may actually lead the charge out of a major pullback, but I think it's going to be some decent buying opportunities coming up. if they do keep pulling back. Like if you can get AMD for $80, you know, level, I'd almost expect it to come back into 56 though. If we have a massive flush on the markets, AVGO is going to close that gap, I'd say. I think that's a good target for AVGO. If it does that before earnings, you'd potentially get a bounce at earnings there. One to keep in mind. SMCI is getting a little bid there. That's good. SML. So sectors are all over the shop even. Like it seems to be individual stocks of the play at the moment. Stellantis still struggling. This is the concerning one. So Ford is kind of suggesting that the economy is not great in the US at least. It's getting just hammered by the Chinese imports. ASX 200. So the Aussie market had a bearish engulfing candle as well. So it's not a great sign either. Be looking for breaks of this trend line here. It's not very well drawn, but something around there. I would suggest a break of that trend line is going to bring you back into this at least 81.50. All right, I think probably about it for today. ETH versus BTC, maybe putting in a bottom. Let's see if these guys are still long in it. Yep, they're still long in it, big time. ETH longs are coming into the market. BTC shorts are getting a little bit of an uptick. Yeah, ETH dominance still in the toilet, really. BTC dominance actually looks like it might be just retesting a breakout level there. So at the moment, alt season is not really confirmed. This is the nasty looking one though. Like if CME can bounce somewhere around here, and look, you could literally draw this trend line there. That's why you got to look at them as zones, but it is a critical zone regardless. Probably the stronger trend line that it looks like it has broken is this one here. So two ways to look at this. It's kind of its last chance to actually bounce for a bigger pullback. If CME can recover this white trend line today, then things will be looking a lot better. But the other thing to keep in mind is that momentum is clearly to the downside and BBWP is increasing. So that's not a great sign for CME to be putting in that sort of signal. Literally, we need a positive day on CME today, which there's a lot of headwind for that to actually happen. BTC is getting a little bit of a bounce here. It's bringing it back into basically the CME level. So expect probably not a lot of action for the time being. Again, like just bull traps galore here so far. Like even this move the other day, massive run up and then just gigantic pullback. I would be surprised if we leave the liquidity on the table that was sitting at 94, 95. For the time being, though, there's a bit of a switch in momentum. What you want to see is basically a W pattern. If we form a decent W pattern here, come up, pull back into here, retest this level. Potentially, you'd be retesting the, what is that? That'd be the 200 and the 800, sorry, just the 200 EMA, but the mid band of the linear regression channel as well. And then a move to the upside. That there doesn't necessarily do a measured move, but that could take you up into the 97 level, which, to be honest, it's going to be a move that should really continue on. Again, just be careful of bull traps. Take profit on the way. Yeah, I mean, cumulative volume delta, RSI is just starting to tick up a little. Volatility starting to increase on the 15-minute, just based on the volatility measure that I've got here. That's a strong candle. If we can close above the 50 EMA at, where is it? 96,350-ish. That would, oh yeah, it's turned into a vector as well. So, oh, here we go. Now I'm glad I got rid of my shorts. Yeah, okay. Be interesting if Bitcoin can completely buck the trend of the rest of the market. What we don't want to see is just a rejection off this level, which it doesn't look like it should do that at the moment. All right, I'll leave you with that. We'll catch us later.